Good morning to everybody. How you doing? Hope all is well. Keep up the beautiful work. Bezrat Hashem, Yitbarach V'Yitromam. Today is Friday, Erev Shabbat Kodesh Parashat Vayikra. A new book, a new leaf, inshallah, new beracha for everyone, for Am Yisrael. Hajj already, the hostages, the soldiers. We really need Mashiach, and he's coming. B'Nisan negalu, b'Nisan atidin legael. Just like we were redeemed in Nisan, we will be redeemed, Be'ezrat Hashem, Bekarov, very, very soon, because we really, really could use it. Be'ezrat Hashem, Itbarach. Today's class is in memory of Rachel Bat Elka. Today is her yahrzeit. We should have Besorot Tovot, Yeshua V'Nechamot for Am Yisrael, and everyone should only see good things. So number one, everybody knows that Vayikra is a new book, is a new parasha, but when you take a peek and look at the little aleph, you wonder, why is there a small aleph? Tomorrow when the Torah comes out, usually it's hard to find sometimes where the parasha begins, but tomorrow's a no-brainer. There's like a bunch of lines that are empty because it's a new book. And when you take a look at the word Vayikra, you will see that the aleph is small. And everybody knows why the aleph is small. Because of Moshe's humility. Number one, a couple weeks ago, we learned in the parasha that when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from heaven, he did not even know that his face was shining like bright lights on a car at night. And all of a sudden, Yoshua looks at him. He couldn't even look at him. And from that day on, Moshe had to cover his forehead with a hood, with a mask, because of his face shining like that. Where did he get the shining face from? Well, why did he get it? Is number one, every action we do, we know there's accountability, and there's good for every action we do that is good. Some people think when they do a small action, it's forgotten. They give tzedakah, it's forgotten. They do this, it's for nothing in Hashem's eyes. There's a reason why there's a song out there. Every breath you take, every move you make, every single move we make, Hashem notices and it gets written down, and Hashem rewards us for the good ones. If there's something that's $1.99 in the store, I guess that was only in the 80s, and you give them $2 and they give you a penny back, you take that penny, and in the old days, we would just put it in a Hatzalah, Tzedakah box, or SBH, whatever it might be, because one of the reasons is maybe you don't want a penny in your pocket. Today they put it in the pocket because it's that's it. They're discontinued. Maybe they're going to be worth more one day. But anyway, the person didn't really give that tzedakah 100%. You all do, but that penny. But even though they gave it, Hashem looks at it, and it's a mitzvah, and it's a beautiful thing, and every deed we do, we get rewarded for. When Moshe Rabbeinu was climbing Har Sinai to get the baby sheep, when he was watching his father-in-law's sheep, why did he go all the way to the Sinai desert to take his flock of sheep? Because he didn't want it to steal from other people's property. Imagine how careful we have to be. You have people out there in the world in Never Land that they think other people's property is their property. However, Moshe wouldn't even let the sheep eat from somebody else's property. And who did he learn from? Of course, our great-great-grandfather, Avraham Avinu. So he takes them to the desert. One little sheep ran away. Everybody knows business is business. If someone stole a battery from a retail store in the old days, and you're not going to run out to chase after him, because now all the iPads and all the fish lens cameras and all the items are over there, and someone could hush them. Moshe couldn't help it. He saw a little sheep that was thirsty. He ran after the sheep. Hashem says someone who has feelings for his sheep will have feelings for my people, and he will be the shepherd of Hashem's flock. Now, whenever we talk about this, we always have to give the little disclaimer. Yes, it's important to care about animals, and his whole subject in the Torah. Torah tells us, Even menachai tzar bale hayim, but sometimes, like we said, you have animal activists that might take somebody because he's eating a steak and hit him in the head with a baseball bat, God forbid, because he didn't care about a cow. We care about animals 100,000%, but we care about human beings a gazillion percent. So Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, he cared about a sheep, but he cared about a million times more the people. When somebody learns Torah, they have more mercy in their system. Their heart gets bigger because Hashem is kulo rahmanut. We refer to Hashem in the Birkat HaMazon, Harachaman. In the Torah, Rahmana Amar. Hashem says in the Torah, He's the merciful one. So if Hashem and the Torah is one, and He's the author of the Torah, the more Torah that you learn, the more merciful your heart becomes. Batya had mercy on everybody. Anyone who told him a story, he would cry for them. When an Ethiopian would pray in the shul, he would put him in the front seat so he doesn't feel. Sometimes they may have felt praying in certain places, they feel a little queasy. And he says, no, you sit up front. He had mercy more than the dinya. And that's because he learned all those sefarim, which is the Torah of Hashem. And Hashem is all mercy. Moshe Rabbeinu goes after the sheep. When he goes up and he sees the burning bush, which isn't a big deal. A lot of times you drive on the highway in Israel, God should watch our people, our nation. You smell fire in the summer. Why? Because it's so hot outside. Sometimes branches burn and certain dry trees burn, etc. So that's not a no-brainer that happens. But when Moshe saw the fire and the branches not being burned, then he realized, and then he goes to talk, and then Hashem appears to Moshe. That burning bush was Hashem himself. And it's pretty scary. Imagine being on a mountain and all of a sudden you hear a voice. Now today there's speakers, today there's Google Earth, there's satellites, there's Bluetooth. However, back then there was nothing. Well, Hashem came in the voice of Amram, Moshe's father. This way, Moshe Rabbeinu would not get scared. He's going to hear his father's voice. A child hears his father's voice, unless it's after PTA. When you hear that voice, you ran, how you doing? But otherwise, you hear a parent's voice, you feel connected. You're a piece of them, obviously. So Hashem spoke to him. The second Moshe Rabbeinu found out that it is Hashem, he turned his face. He said to himself, who am I to look at Hashem's glory? And he moved his face. And the Gemara says there's different opinions, but the main opinion says that Moshe Rabbeinu, because you moved your face in honor of Hashem, people are going to move their face. They won't be able to look at your face because you're going to be shining like bright lights that people cannot even look at. And he had to wear, like we said, a hood over his forehead. This way, nobody, people could be able to look at him. On a side note, when you see a great tzaddik, as the generations are dwindling, we really need the Mashiach, and we'll see all the great tzaddikim. But the Hafetz Hayim used to tell his students, there was a great Mikubal. He was the grandfather of Rav Elyashiv, and he was known as the Leshem, and he was also, his last name was Rav Elyashiv. And the Hafetz Hayim told his students, go stare at his face. Number one, on a side note, when you stare at a good person's face, the face is not just a face, it's a protrusion of their soul. That means there's energy coming out, and if they're a good person, a tzaddik, a chacham, so you're getting good energy when you look at them. But if a person, God forbid, is wicked, has v'halila, you're not allowed to look at their face. How come? Because it could the energy that's coming out can have an effect on a person, believe it or not. So therefore, we're not. That's why a bunch of parashiyot ago, time flies when you're having fun. Yosef recognized his brothers, but his brothers didn't recognize him. How could the brothers not recognize him? You recognize your brother even 1,000 years later. There are Holocaust survivors that didn't even know their siblings are alive. 50, 60 years later, they bump into into each other. In 1 second, of course, they realized. How come they didn't recognize him? Our rabbis tell us Egypt was filled with, unfortunately, lust and impurity. And because of that, the leader of the pack is responsible. That means they have to be a bigger rasha. If you have leaders in the government where they allow people to have all this craziness with genders and this and that, then the leaders are the ones that are responsible. And therefore, they said, how could they look at Yosef's face if look at what Mitzrayim is? But then after, when he told them who he is, then they looked, and of course they saw it was Yosef. So when looking at something like that has an effect on somebody's face. So the Hafetz Hayim tells his students, go look at the face of the Leshem of Rav Yashiv. Why? Because number one, it's good energy, and it will go into your soul and purify you even more. Vayu enecha ro'et morecha. However, also he said, because look at him now, because in the next world we should live and be well. He's going to be so bright, you will not be able to even look at him. And Moshe Rabbeinu's face was bright down here. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. Where did, now we know why he received it, but where did it come from? Hashem could do anything in 1 second, but he likes to do things through things that look like maybe a natural item, and that is when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to heaven, and he has up there, Hashem made him scrolls of parchment and ink, and Moshe is copying over Hashem's Torah that Hashem wrote before he created the world. He wrote the Torah on white fire for parchment and black fire for the ink. And Moshe Rabbeinu copied the Torah word for word, letter for letter, crown for crown from Hashem's Torah. When he got up to this week's parashat Vayikra, and it says Vayikra el Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu was humble. Moshe Rabbeinu said, who am I that Hashem called to me like that? He was humble, and because he was humble, he couldn't bear to write the word Vayikra, and he called to him, so he wrote the Aleph small. When Hashem appears to Bil'am, it says Hashem had to talk to him. Some people talk to people because they like them, and some people talk to people just because they have to. It's like a chore, it's like a burden. But anyway, Hashem had to talk to Bilam. It says Vayikar, it doesn't say Vayikra. Kar is cold. He had just appeared to him coldly because he had to. So Moshe Rabbeinu made the Aleph smaller because Vayikra means with warmth, with love. You're the hero. Imagine Hashem calling somebody like that, and we all get called like that. When a person does a beautiful thing and they feel good about it, that's Hashem calling to them and connecting to them. And Moshe Rabbeinu made the Aleph small. Our rabbis tell us the extra ink from that little Aleph that was smaller, now there's extra ink, and Hashem took that ink, smeared it on Moshe's forehead. It did not look like a black stain. It didn't look like someone, God forbid, who celebrates each to their own, each Ash Wednesday or something like that. Lavdil gazillion havdalot, but it would shine, and that's what made Moshe Rabbeinu's face shine like it did. Our rabbis ask a question, and this is a very true and obvious question. Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble human being on the face of the earth. What does the face of the earth mean? What if you just said earth, then the whole planet earth? That's the earth. What's the face of the earth? And Hamavadyah tells us that the face of the earth means the lower ground of the earth, meaning to say, in the world of people that are already humble, they're already lower on the ground, Moshe was still the most humble person on the face of the earth. One time, Alav Shalom, Chacham ben Sion Abba Shaul saw somebody yelling at somebody. Not that there's ever yelling in anywhere, especially in Israel. There's no yelling at anyone. Belitza kod ze lo olech, ya habibi. One time, a guy, the doctor said his wife was giving birth. It was a girl, and he starts screaming, "What are you talking about? How dare you? Blah blah blah." Right? We love girls, we love boys, healthy babies. Please Hashem. And after a second, the doctor said, "Oh, I made a mistake. It is a boy." And he said, "You see, belitza akod ze lo holech." So Ham Ben Sion saw one of the gazillion that happens in a gazillion years, someone yelling at somebody. And Ham Ben Sion says, you know, the chametz that's in your house, you had a sin that you had chametz in your house on Pesach. And he said, huh? He's yelling at someone. What does one thing have to do with the other? So you got to pay attention to this, because when we're supposed to be humble, we consider v'nafshi, right? Our soul should be ka'afar haaretz. It should be like the dust of the land, meaning we should be. What does that mean? V'nafshi ka'afar lakol tiyeh. Our soul should be like dirt. What do we should be? Guess what? When a person picks up some dirt from the ground and throws it somewhere, does it miss anything? There's more dirt there. So the dirt is content, meaning to say, you're not taking anything away from it. When a person gets roasted or dissed from somebody else, you got to be like the dirt. Big deal. You know, I'm not losing anything because of you. But anyway, back to our subject. When we say, if the guy is yelling, that means even though he says my soul should be like dust, that means he's not really humble because he's yelling at the guy. So it's not like he didn't really mean it. So now, what does that have to do with Hametz? Ham Ben Sion says on Saturday morning this year and Thursday night, we're going to say Kal Hamira. Dikar b'shuti, haziteh lavi haziteh, right? Ka'afar da'arat, right? It should be like the dust of the land. So he says, if you didn't mean it when you said nafshi ka'afar lakol tiyeh, because you're yelling at the guy, that means you're caring what he said, so you're not like dust. That means when you said kal hamira, the hamet should be like dust. You also didn't mean it, and since you didn't proclaim it ownerless because you didn't mean it, that means you had hametz in your house on Pesach. Anyway, Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble human being on earth, on the face of the earth. Like we said, like all the people that are lower, then he was the most humble. And that's Hashem testifying. You're right. Hashem knows the insides of a person. You might have people out there that act humble and all, and they're really the most shaifi, halo people in the world, and vice versa. Hashem ro'eh chilayot valev, and Hashem sees the insides, and he's saying Moshe is the most humble. That means he was. But now, look how he made the aleph small because he's humble. But now our rabbis ask a question, and that question is, there are 13 principles that every Jew must believe. We believe in the resurrection of the dead, Tahiyat Metim. We believe Mashiach is coming, Hashem, Hajj. We don't want to believe it's coming. We want to see it with our own eyes. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. And one of the 13 principles that we must believe is that Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest Navi that ever was, that ever will be Israel. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. So now I have a question. That means Moshe Rabbeinu has to believe these 13 principles. If a person believes in 12 principles and not the 13th, and someone has an open bottle of wine that's not mevushal, and he touches it, the wine becomes not kosher. He's apikoros if he doesn't believe in all 13, which means Moshe Rabbeinu himself believed in all 13 principles. That means Moshe had to believe that he is the greatest Navi that ever was, that ever is, that ever will be. How could someone believe he's the greatest of the great and he has to believe it? And yet, he's the most humble human being testified by Hashem in the entire world. And the answer is there's a misconception what humility is. Humility doesn't mean that I'm a nothing, has halila, that I'm worthless, that I can't do anything. That, you know what that's called? That's called foolishness. That's called giving in to the Yeser Hara. Of course, you're here for a reason. Hashem made a person for a reason. That means you are crucial to the world. Hashem would not let the world exist right now without you. That means you are one of the puzzle pieces of God. You have to know how important you are. And you have a job in this world that nobody else can do. It's not like Hashem just creates people and let you, right? There's a purpose, there's a reason, there's a plan. So when a person knows he was created for a reason. We all have to know the first commandment of the 10 commandments, Anochi Hashem, I am a piece of Hashem. A person has to know their worth. Woe is to the person that doesn't know their faults, and double woe is to the person that doesn't know their good quality traits. So a person who knows their quality traits and utilizes them, and he can't say that's not a sign of being haughty. That's a sign of just saying, I realize what I am, but it's all from Hashem. God bless. Sometimes you call up people for a donation. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. Everyone should always be from the givers, Be'ezrat Hashem. As they say, what's the greatest nation? A donation. And sometimes you call them and a person, you tell them, thank you, Hazak Baruch. And sometimes people say, it's not my money. I'm just watching it. Hashem gave it to me to distribute. That's beautiful. And thank God that's what our community is all about. They're always giving, Baruch Hashem, and no one needs his name up in lights sometimes, right? But in Neverland, you have a guy, he thinks he owns the dinya because he gave 45 shekel to Heke as a donation. Obviously, which brings us to another subject, which is very important, which is in the parasha as well. Vayikra speaks about all the korbanot. And in the korbanot, you're going to hear the words throughout the parasha, Reach Nihoach Lashem, a beautiful aroma for Hashem. There are different korbanot. There's the korban hatat, olev, yored, an expensive one, a cheap one. A guy could bring a $10,000 heke Angus beef cow as a korban, and a guy hazid could bring a little piece of matzah with oil that's a good 25 cents if you're lucky. By both of them, the $10,000 one and the 25-cent one, Hashem says the words Reach Nihoach Lashem, which is connected to what we were saying before. How could it be? And the answer is because Echad Hamarbeh ve'echad hamamit u'belvad shechaven et libo lashamayim. Hashem looks at as much as you can give. The quantity is important, of course, but quality is even more important. One time, I went to a synagogue and there was a fellow, God bless, he went up to the Torah and he gave a $250,000 donation. That was just for the Mazeh for one Saturday morning in the Knis. But anyway, it could be that yours truly got the Aliyah right after him. And I said, Yalla, I'm in a generous mood. He gave a $250,000. Yalla, I get up there and Misha Berach and I say, Pa'amayim matanat yado. Not just one matanat yado, ya habibi, but Pa'amayim, because we're on a streak of being heke high rollers. So I tell the fellow, it's pretty funny. You gave a $250,000 and I gave heke a quarter of 100, 26, ya habibi. And he says, Hashem loves your 26 more than my 250 mil. I don't know if the shul likes the 26 as much as the two. They said they're going to build a room in the new building, and the room is going to say donated by Mr. Matanat Yado. How you doing? Long story short, It doesn't matter how much. If a person has and he gives and from his heart, then that's magnificent. But if a person tries their hardest, that's all that matters. And that's connected to the small aleph in the Vayikra that we just mentioned, together with Moshe's humility, what humility really is, and everything is Hashem, and we're here for a mission of Hashem, etc. And we try our hardest, and by trying our hardest, that's all Hashem wants from us. We'll stop here for today. Hope everyone has the greatest Shabbat. Good things always. If you didn't make Birkat Ilanot, Yalla, Bezrat Hashem, make it. Saturday night, if it's not rainy, we're going to make Birkat Levana. Bezrat Hashem, Yitbarach. And we hope to be in Yerushalayim, and we'll have Korban Pesach, and we'll make the Beracha on the eating of the Korban Pesach. Bezrat Hashem. Keep up the great work, good things, all the best. Shabbat Shalom. Take care. Bye.